Follow the money.
That's what I always say. You always follow the money.
Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
Here we go. It is Follow the Money on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. This show is brought to you by DraftKings. Mitch Moss along with Jonathan Von Tobel, who is in for the vacationing Paulie Howard, as we are live in downtown Las Vegas from the Circa Resort and Casino. Fun show on tap today. Of course, NBA playoffs. Shenanigans last night in the NHL. What a wild night that was on the ice. We have NFL draft props, today's Major League Baseball card, and great guests on the program today as well. JVT, as you're filling in for Paulie this week, how you feeling? Late night NBA action. Quick turnaround for you today, pal.
It is. But every time I get to do this, I get the honor of filling in. I just go through the week feeling dead inside, and then I catch up on like Saturday.
Is that what you do?
Yeah, like that's pretty much all it is. So
it's probably a pretty good game plan.
Yeah, family doesn't get much of me throughout the week, but you guys get my 100%. And that's all that matters.
Yeah,
you know?
Today's going to be fun. I misplaced my glasses last night, so I've talked about this before. I used to have like 2015. I could spot dimes from across the sports book.
Okay.
It was crazy.
You're not talking about money, right?
Let's just say the vision has eroded over the years, right? Don't know where they are. So good luck to me today. I mean, the stuff up close, no chance. Like
Yeah.
I'm okay driving without the glasses, and I can see like the screens and stuff like that are in front of us right here in the studio.
So you're farsighted. It's always the opposite.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. So like if you're farsighted, that's how I understand it, you can see things far away, but you cannot see things close to you.
All I know is that up close, no chance on the phone. And the laptop and the stuff in front of me right now, gonna be dicey today. So we got you for 3 hours. We're gonna try our best. It's gonna be an A effort, I'll tell you that though today.
Hey, that's why I'm here. I got my contacts in. I may or may not have accidentally fallen asleep with them on last night, so they're glued in. I'm ready to go.
We'll get into the non-A effort that the Warriors gave in the second half last night here in a couple of minutes. But the Lakers, they did get past the Pelicans last night, and yes, they were up by 17 points in the third quarter. And before you could blink, the Pelicans hit them with a pretty significant run, and then they tied it late. And then how about the timing with the Pelicans individually now that we're talking about? Zion had to leave the game, and they scored 106 points. He had 40 of them.
Yep.
So he was a man on a mission last night. The only guy who could really do anything offensively for New Orleans. Ingram was on the bench for the final almost 8 minutes. Still injured, evidently. And then McCollum was a total non-factor in the game, but they came roaring back, tied it, and then all that happened.
Yeah, that was tough. I mean, look, I thought, so the moment he goes down, there's about like 3.5 minutes left to go, a little bit less than that. He hits like a floater over Anthony Davis. That goes in and ties it. When that shot went down, I was like, oh, the Lakers are going to lose this thing. Like he looked unstoppable. LeBron was missing him on back cuts. He was just driving past guys. He was getting physical with Anthony Davis and winning some of those matchups. And he looked awesome. And narratively, right, it's after all of these no-shows, essentially, for the Pelicans and him against the Los Angeles Lakers. And so then you get this and figured, like, this is going to be it. But then you see the frustration immediately. By the way, they're only calling it soreness, which I don't really buy. Like, his reaction, coupled with the fact that he never came back, you feel like it's a little bit more than just soreness. But the fact that he goes down, your only source of offense, you mentioned Ingram, who checks out with 7.5 minutes left to go, never gets back into a game in which they ultimately tie. It was just this confluence of events that allowed the Lakers to really squeak by and get out of this thing against New Orleans.
How'd they blow that lead?
I think there was a couple of things. Like, first off, D'Angelo Russell was awesome in the first half. He was hitting every single three-point shot.
In fact, if it wasn't for him, there was a chance they were going to be dead and buried in that first half.
I would agree with that. Like, and the Lakers are a pretty solid three-point shooting team, but the fact that all of those were going down early on, and you and I had mentioned when we talked about this matchup yesterday, one of the driving factors behind the Lakers' success was the fact that they were killing the Pelicans in the paint in the regular season. They were getting nothing within 4 feet of the basket in this matchup. So the fact that you kind of supplanted that with some three-point shooting was really good, but once that dried up, their offense wasn't really doing that much. Mm-hmm. So then you allow the Pelicans to get back in it. You're getting empty possessions. Like, that's what I was watching. I watched the Lakers offense that all of a sudden had nothing. And, they allowed the Pelicans to get right back in this thing. Pelicans were awesome. They were 23 of 34 within 4 feet of the basket, so 67% at the rim, and they drew 6 shooting fouls. Like, they were great. Just killing them in the paint, and then Zion gets out.
Yeah, the Lakers offense was really good for that stretch when they fell behind early. They came roaring back to take that big lead, and then when they built it up to 17, it was really, really effective.
Yep.
And then it just went kind of bye-bye, and it vanished, and then they held on, and now they get the Denver Nuggets now in round one, and they opened up, well, let me put it this way. Denver opened up in the $4 or minus 450 range as a favorite in that series before there was some, I think, pretty immediate buyback on the Lakers to bring it down a little bit. And now at DraftKings, they have the Lakers at minus, check that, the Nuggets at minus 310 to win this thing.
Yeah.
And this has not gone well for the Lakers over the last couple of years, nor has it gone well for Anthony Davis in a spot against the Joker and Denver either.
No, not at all. And I think like when you look at this matchup, I made the joke yesterday. I was texting with some folks here at the network where, when people are going to try to make the case here for the Lakers to win this series, and obviously there is a case to make, but I think overall this mismatch is a little, it's a mismatch, and it works in favor of Denver. And when you're watching Jose Alvarado destroy guys like Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell off the dribble yesterday, a big reason why they were able to come back, that's not really something that I think bodes well in a series against the Denver Nuggets, who have pretty good backcourt play, especially led by Jamal Murray. And one of the things that the Lakers did very sneakily throughout this regular season, Mitch, was they sacrificed defense for offense. They were, post-All-Star break, 22nd in non-garbage time defensive efficiency. You're playing D'Angelo Russell, you're playing Austin Reeves, you're playing Spencer Dinwiddie, and you do that to get your offense better, and it has gotten a lot better, but you're just not really great along the perimeter. And so when you're talking about this, the inability to stop Nikola Jokic, which nobody does, I'm sure everybody's going to get hot and heavy about the fact that they figured him out last year defensively. Despite the fact that they got swept, they figured something out there against Jokic by putting Rui Hachimura on him. So maybe they go back to that again. But I don't think you have anything that kind of changes from a defensive game plan here for a guy like Jokic that dominated him last season.
Remember last year, game one in the playoffs, felt like the Lakers maybe could have won that game against Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And then even when they dropped the second game, they were going back to L.A. I was on the air. I had the Lakers at 47-1 to win the West last year. Bought them when they were awful in the regular season. And I remember saying in the air, I haven't hedged yet, and I'm not going to. I'll come back. I'm pretty confident the Lakers are going to win the next two at home. Whoops.
Yeah.
That was a 4-game sweep at the hands of the eventual champs.
Hey, it was the most competitive sweep in basketball history, right, as people are calling it.
People were losing their minds last year after the Lakers nearly won game one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we saw, I don't know if we have them, that I was making fun of, and we all have bad ones, but these are funny, like Jamel Hill, Nick Wright, tweeting out after the game one, like that, I don't know. I'd feel like I'm down 1-0 after that matchup, after they figured this out. Like, I like this one from Jamel Hill, this from last year. A win's a win, but if I'm Denver, I treat it like a loss. Lakers really figured something out, and putting Hachimura on Jokic. That's one of those somewhat small adjustments that can win a series. Nick Wright had the same thing, too. It was essentially like, oh, yeah, here it is. Props to Jokic for playing essentially perfect offensive basketball. That's just enough to get the win. But if a win ever felt like a loss, and vice versa, this was it. The Lakers have to feel great. They lost the next three.
Yeah, it did not go well for the Lakers in the next three. In fact, it got worse when they went back to L.A.
No.
Now, will this be a 4-game sweep?
No, look, I think the Lakers have gotten better, especially as we talk about. You do sacrifice defense for offense, but the offense is very good. And D'Angelo Russell seems to have it's weird at this point of his career, but really come into his own and played a lot better and kind of figured out his role with this team. Obviously, we know Austin Reeves can be very good, and the bench is a little bit better from an offensive standpoint. So I think the Lakers have gotten much better. So, you go from last year, they got swept. No, I don't think that that's going to be a sweep. I think they're going to be much more competitive and losing 5 games.
Oh, and 5 this time. Okay, all right. So I think a big storyline going into the series is going to be free throws, right? Because it always comes up. The Lakers shoot and make more free throws than anybody in the league. It happened again last night. They made 26. New Orleans made 11. Willie Green, the head coach for the Pelicans, of course, he was asked about it after the game. Here you go.
I don't feel like we've gotten a great whistle all season. That's how I feel when I watch the games. We're one of the teams that dominate the paint night in and night out. We have a physical dominant force in Zion, along with others. And it just seems like we're not getting those calls.
Is he on something there, JVT? Specifically with the game last night, dominating the paint, Zion had 40, and yet here you go. They're not shooting free throws. They're not even going to the free throw line that much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would agree with the all season. They were 10th in free throw rate. They made just over 20 free throws for every 100 field goal attempts. So maybe you felt like you needed more, but they were a top 10 team there. But last night, I think you could kind of agree with that for the most part. Like when you're challenging the paint as much as they were yesterday, you probably should draw some more fouls than you usually do. I mean, it's kind of like the Zach Edey conversation, right? But it's defensively. It's like there's no way Zach Edey only averages like less than 2 fouls a game.
Right.
You know, the way he plays, it doesn't happen if you call it the right way. And it's the same thing here where if you're getting to the paint as often as you are, you probably should be generating some more free throws. And again, there were some inconsistencies with the ability to play physically, but then at times in the fourth quarter, calling some ticky-tack nonsense, right, that allows a team to rack up some fouls and get to the bonus, whatever it is. So I don't think that, for me, there was anything glaring, but I will say it is kind of surprising when you see a team take 34 attempts at the rim, 19 inside of 14 feet, and then they come away with just 11 makes at the free throw line and 15 total attempts.
Yeah. So now, moving forward here, the Kings went 0-5 against the Pelicans this year. It's the first time an NBA team went 0-5 against an opponent since the mid-'90s. And, well, the Pelicans are now 1.5-point favorites in this game at DraftKings.
I mean, you just don't know, right?
We have no idea what's going to happen here. They play Friday, by the way.
They play Friday, and you don't know what's happening with Zion. And as we kind of mentioned, if you read Willie Green's comments yesterday about Brandon Ingram, who, again, checked out with 7.5 minutes left, didn't get back into a game that was tied at one point later in the fourth quarter, and says, like, I felt like I didn't want to push it with him. He only came back in the regular season finale. Like, that's kind of worrisome. I do think there's a reality in which you're looking at this going and playing New Orleans, to be Sacramento, and while you're at home, you could be without Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram, or Brandon Ingram on like a 25-minute pitch count, which is not great.
Mm-hmm. So both these teams really not even close to potentially here being at full health.
Right.
The Kings have had injuries now for a long time.
Yeah, but boy, oh boy, I know we'll get into it. Watching Keon Ellis on defense last night, they might be pretty good.
Picking the pocket of Curry like that right out of the gates pretty much. So we'll get into the Warriors. Finito for them beyond this year, by the way. And it might be a sign when voters are confused. That's next here on VSiN.
VSiN.com/newsletter. You can get in on the free newsletter written every single day by Bill Adey. And today's newsletter, hey, how about that? I'm in it. You can check out some previews of the write-ups for the Eastern Conference play-in games later tonight. And you can find those in full on the website of VSiN.com. Check it out. By the way, some nuggets on the NHL playoffs shaping up too. VSiN.com/newsletter. Get in your inbox every single day, 6 a.m. Eastern.
I will say regarding the NHL with the Atlantic Division and how that played out, and the Bruins losing last night in regulation to the Senators. So they did not win the division, and the Florida Panthers get the job done. They're down 2-0 right away to the Maple Leafs. They came back and won 5-2, and they won it. They were a huge price early on in the season, plus 750, 8-1. And for it to play out like that was just a roller coaster. And I can't believe that's how it went down. And I'm texting Jeff Davis, who runs the numbers here in the NHL, at Circa last night. And then we got into the Capitals making the playoffs. They have a goal differential of -37.
Yep.
Jeff Davis said that he would make the Seattle Kraken, I think they finished with 79 points this year. He said he would make the Kraken a favorite on a neutral.
Like for a one-off?
Or in a series,
In a series too, yeah.
How about that?
That's hilarious. I mean, as somebody who was convinced potentially by some folks with a Detroit background to support the Red Wings for the futures ticket, I think this is a travesty. How can this team make it in? Goal differential should be very important. Who cares about points? Tied in points, +4 in goal differential. Red Wings deserve it. Let them
It's the worst for any team to make the playoffs since 1991.
Yeah.
Look what happened last night. Detroit scored with 3.3 seconds on the clock to keep their season alive. Philly pulled their goalie with 3 minutes left. They had to have the game in regulation to make the playoffs. So Washington scored with the empty net, which means they got in over Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and Detroit.
Bonkers, dude. I was keeping track of that, too, because I've got two. Well, I've got one now. I've got 2 futures tickets, so needed that in. I told Derek Stevens that if I got a Red Wings Predators Stanley Cup final, I would walk to Detroit to watch that first
Is that
game.
right?
Yeah.
That would have been a good one for you, huh? Is it over with now for the Warriors? That's it? Finito?
I think it depends on what you mean by done. Like, I don't think they're done being competitive. I think they've done a pretty good job in getting some really good young talent on the roster, right? You know, Jonathan Kuminga looked great. It looked like he was going to bring him back into that himself at one point.
Yeah.
Had a stretch where he scored on 3 straight possessions late in the first half. Pajemski looks like a good role player. Trace Jackson-Davis, it looks like they found something at center. But I do think it's done in the sense of, look, Klay Thompson goes 0-10 yesterday from the floor. 0-6 from three-point range, doesn't score a point. I know that Steve Kerr said that they want him back, and you're not as bad as your worst performance. I don't think that's what Klay Thompson is. But when you talk about where you're at with salaries and how much you're going to have to pay and all of those sort of things,
yep.
I do think it's over in the sense that I don't think you're really weeping if Klay Thompson leaves and that trio breaks up.
Probably not. It's been a decade run.
Yeah. It was a good run. Dude, the fact, and you think about it too, so they've missed the playoffs in 3 out of the last 5 years. They've got an NBA Finals championship in that run.
Think about that.
That run is, I think, one of the most underrated runs that a team has had in a really long time. And Curry's run individually was incredible. But I think it's time to kind of break this up. You need more support for Steph Curry offensively. Jonathan Kuminga is awesome, but that can't be the only other outlet of consistent offense that you're getting from that team.
Yeah, here are their salaries for next year. Curry, almost $56 million. Wiggins, higher than $26 million. Draymond Green, more than $24 million. Chris Paul is a partial non-guarantee, slated to make $30 million. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's going to be a massive problem here. And their guaranteed salary into next year is already $137 million. Their non-guaranteed is 36, almost $37 million. Their tax level is at $171 million. So building something around, I don't know. They're going to, good luck trying to fit this puzzle together.
Right. And for a guy like Klay, I think he still has some value. We'll see obviously what happens in the series between Orlando and Cleveland. But Orlando needs shooting, and it needs consistent shooting at that 2-guard spot. I think Klay would be a pretty decent fit there. And he's still a somewhat decent defender, so you're talking about pairing him with Jalen Suggs. There's worse combinations to be had there, right? So I think something like that for Klay Thompson, maybe makes some sense. But I don't know if it makes sense to pay him that money just to keep this thing together for another run, when the reality is you could probably upgrade at the position potentially.
Every year, I tell myself I'm going to dial it back with betting NBA awards because of what I may or may not disagree with how they go sometimes. Mm-hmm. And it's tricky anyway. For example, the most improved player over the years in the sixth man, the most improved has been really, really bizarre to me.
Yes.
I totally disagree with a player like Ja Morant getting in a couple of years ago.
Agreed.
I'm not a big fan of the idea of Tyrese Maxey getting it this year.
He should have won it the year, I think it was the year that Ja Morant won it.
Ja Morant,
yep.
Okay.
But no, he's a second-year player. Can't do that.
Then this came out yesterday. Tweet from @TheDunkCentral, Dante DiVincenzo, who only missed a single game this year. So he played in 81 out of 82 games. He is not eligible for the Most Improved Player award because he fell just 9 seconds short of the required playing time. Players need to have participated in at least 65 games for a minimum of 20 minutes each to qualify for postseason awards. Now, is that for every single award, JVT, or is that just for the most improved that we know of?
No, so it's MVP, it's Defensive Player of the Year, and it's most improved.
But it's not sixth man.
It's not sixth man, and it's not Rookie of the Year.
Okay, sure.
And
right.
yeah. So I don't understand that, especially when it comes to most improved. So obviously, it implies that you've improved. So you were from a point and you've gotten better.
You made a major jump.
Correct. So part of that could be you've gone from minimal role player to maybe about 19 minutes a game, but maybe you doubled your score, whatever it is. That's improvement. A category like most improved should not have such strict criteria. Mm-hmm. When you're talking about most valuable player, defensive player of the year, I totally understand something like that, because that is essentially you are the best of whatever we're talking about here, this award. You're talking about most improved. The fact that it's got this strict, I don't really understand that at all.
Well, this is a major flaw in the entire thing. When Dave McMenamin, ESPN, puts up on X that he wanted to include DiVincenzo just on his ballot, on his most improved player ballot, he points out he played in 81 of 82 games. Somehow he only got credit for playing in 64 games by the eligibility rules. And he talks about how it requires 20 minutes to have it count as a game played. And he says, come on. And then also, he quote tweeted that by saying Jonathan Kuminga, who played in 74 games, also ineligible. And he's asking the question, what is going on here?
Well, that's a good way to find out my Jonathan Kuminga most improved ticket was dead. I mean, I figured he wasn't going to win, but still.
How about that?
That's insane. Again, that we're talking. If you were to say, just in a vacuum, hey, not even who is the most improved, who are among the most improved players in the NBA this season? Jonathan Kuminga would be on that list if you've watched this league.
100%, and so would Dante DiVincenzo.
Yes, and then when I follow that up with, they're not eligible to win that award. It's maddening to think about that from that regard.
So did we all just miss this in the fine print going back? Because we didn't miss that they have to play 65 games.
Right.
We knew that. Where was it that they had to average 20 minutes?
That was part of it, but I didn't realize that that you were looking at this from, I didn't realize that their minutes specifically were there, but they had talked about that for the game to count. There was the minimum of 20 minutes played. So to avoid, I think it was last year, Mikal Bridges, remember when they wanted to keep his streak alive, so they just put him in a game real quick and then pulled him after?
Yes.
Something to avoid something like that. So let's say you have a player who's sitting on 64 games, but you want to sit him, just put him in there and put him out so you can get 65 games. They wanted to avoid that. So that's why they put this in there. But again, I think that should be for the awards that are the best of the best. Defensive Player of the Year, Most Valuable Player, not awards that are like this when you're talking about Most Improved. That's ridiculous.
I have to tip my cap to Max Crows, who puts together something called the NBA Awards Tracker with a Google Doc. And if you just Google it, it's the first thing that pops up, right? So he has all of the awards voters listed by name, who they're with, and who they have voted for. A lot of these voters will make their ballots publicly known before the actual vote comes in, or before we actually know when they announce it before the playoff games, right? And there is no NBA award show, by the way. They do it sporadically throughout the playoffs, and sometimes it comes with no notice. They'll say on TNT one night during the playoffs, oh, hey, we have an interview coming up with Tyrese Maxey in 3 minutes. Well, that's probably a tell that he's going to win Most Improved then. But as of right now, there's at least one big dog from the beginning of the season who's trending towards winning an award. That is Naz Reid for Sixth Man of the Year.
Yes.
He is trending in a major way. He was until last night. He still is right now. He's the leader with the most first-place votes. Malik Monk, as they have accumulated here more votes from last night, he's picked up a couple, but Naz Reid in the lead to win Sixth Man of the Year as we speak.
Yeah. I think that makes some sense. I thought the three guys that were worthy of winning this were Naz Reid, Malik Monk, and Norman Powell. So I figured those would probably be your three finalists. I wouldn't be shocked at all if Naz Reid were to win this thing. He was incredible for the Minnesota Timberwolves this season.
We now all of a sudden have a bunch of former players coming out and saying Rudy Gobert does not deserve to win Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
But he's going to. Speaking of trending in the right direction, most of these voters are giving Gobert the award. So we can expand on that. And more draft props in the NFL. Another team is going to be in play for a quarterback. If you believe the GM, then it will happen. No questions asked.
Betting splits are still open, folks. I told Bill 80, I was like, keep those things open, man. Let these people see them. So check it out now. You can get where the money and bets are moving for every single game over at DraftKings. For the play-in games today, the full slate of Major League Baseball, last couple of days of the National Hockey League, and more. Right now, vsin.com/splits, open to everybody.
We'll get into the NFL draft here coming up in a few moments. Former NBA players, some really good ones, are coming out and saying, Rudy Gobert, Defensive Player of the Year, are you kidding me? How about DeMarcus Cousins, who has called out voters repeatedly for voting for Rudy Gobert, saying that Gobert is not even that great defensively. Quote, you can't have a potential four-time Defensive Player of the Year who doesn't finish games. I'm never going to be okay with this. I see things in black and white. If you're the best defender on the best defensive team, you should never be off the floor. There should never be a scenario where you're not able to fit into the scheme. That doesn't make sense. How do you keep awarding this guy who can't even stay on the floor in the playoffs? This is mind-blowing to me. End of quote, DeMarcus Cousins.
Okay.
I know that you agree with him, JVT.
Totally. Do you know who led the Minnesota Timberwolves in clutch minutes this season?
Yeah, I don't know where he's getting that from because...
Well, I know where he's getting it from. It's like the same thing we do all the time, right? Where we just remember people at their worst. And by the way, it wasn't his worst. But there were times where, with the Utah Jazz, where teams were going 5 out and destroying Utah, right? And people were equating that to Rudy Gobert can't play.
Well, no, I was talking about moving forward to this year. Sorry.
Yeah.
Gobert's not going to be off the court
not at
this
all.
year for the Timberwolves in big spots for the T-Wolves. That's not going to happen.
As I mentioned, he leads the team in clutch minutes, 4.2. Next is Anthony Edwards at 4. Clutch minutes, again, game within 5 points, 5 or fewer minutes left to go. So you can't get more end of game than that when it comes to Rudy Gobert. like I've said the whole time, I totally understand if you think Victor Wembanyama can win this award, should win this award. If you had a vote, you would give it to. There's no argument. Like I wouldn't push back on that at all. My whole thing is like stuff like this, where like Boogie Cousins is acting like he's a terrible defender and he's got no case to be made for this thing. That's incorrect. And frankly, you're just not watching if you think that he should not be anywhere near this award. And I think like there is this narrative about him, again, going back to the years with Utah, where they were playing 5 out and getting wrecked. And it's really not fair because if you go back and watch those series, like, look, I'm a big Clippers fan, right? I watched the Clippers win that series without Kawhi Leonard. What happened was they did go 5 out. But you want to know what the problem was? Rudy Gobert was surrounded by a bunch of really poor on-ball defenders. They were getting destroyed left and right, and he was asked to put out a whole bunch of fires. So that translates into, well, it's all Rudy Gobert's fault.
That's Wemby this year, by the way.
Right. I mean, it's true, right? Which is he's surrounded by a whole bunch of bad on-ball defenders. They're all just funneling him into Victor Wembanyama, and they're like, please save us. And he's like, yeah, I'm 7 million feet tall. I'll destroy everything that comes within 4 feet of the basket. But again, that's like my whole thing here. I got no dog in the fight. I actually kind of hope you guys win, right, to get all these bets in, and it looks like maybe it's not going to be the case. But my whole pushback has always been, you don't know what you're talking about if you're trying to make it out that he's a bad defender or that he doesn't deserve to be considered. That's always kind of been my whole thing.
No, he's clearly good at what he does.
Yeah, he deserves to be called by his true name, not Rudy Gobert.
And I've probably been mean to him a
little bit
on the air this year. When I called him Rudy Gobert and I called him a big stiff.
If he was American, you would be down.
I just think that Wemby's got a better case than Gobert this year.
Sure.
And as of right now, that's not the case in the eyes of the voters. In fact, 13 votes have been compiled. 10 of them have given the first place vote to Rudy Gobert.
Now, the silver liner, if you want to be positive, I think well over 100 people get a vote here for these awards. So you still got plenty.
It's a big list, but it's not trending in the right direction at this point.
Obviously, no. It is not trending in the right direction.
This is Kevin Garnett. He was talking with Paul Pierce. Small sample size from the Up in Smoke podcast.
Wemby, hands down. It ain't even a choice.
I think Wembanyama.
And I hope the league don't screw him. All this, he plays on a bad team. And, man, listen, you still got to show up and clock in. Out of here, man. Dude, listen, let me tell y'all something, man. Wemby has took expectations and shot it to the moon, man. Straight up. Everything we expected him to do, he was a lot and then some. The he's doing in the post, man, get out of here, man. I'm not letting us go like that, bro. The he doing, I ain't seen nobody do. And everybody that came through doing it. I ain't seen nobody sham guard nobody from the post, from a face up.
Damn.
Man, no. Stop.
That was crazy.
Stop.
Okay, so he's screaming it from the mountaintops, but it's not going to have an impact on the voters. They're not going to listen to that.
Well, and also their votes are already submitted.
Their votes are already in, yeah.
No, like I said, like it's great. And I will say too, in the argument for Wembanyama, one of the things that I heartily disagree with, it actually goes back to last year for MVP. Like there were people who voted for Joel Embiid to win MVP who vocalized, well, he doesn't have one yet, so that's why I gave him the edge. It's the same thing here where it's like you're hearing like, well, Wembanyama's going to win a bunch in the future. It's
can't stand
no, if you think he deserves to win it, you vote for him.
Of course.
You don't just say, he's a rookie, I can't do it. It's the same thing with most, like to your point about this whole thing when it comes to awards, and the thing that also makes me want to pull my hair out, right? These weird rules that are just like, can't give most improved to a second-year player, can't give defensive player you to a rookie. No, if he's the best defender, if you think he is, you can't not vote for him just because, like, well, he's a rookie, I can't do that. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
That is not quite as bad as the worst thing for me last year was when voters said, if Nikola Jokic is going to win 3 consecutive MVPs, that's only 2 guys have ever done that before, right? Yeah. He has to do something historically great that's never been done before. Like, I'm just like, wait, where are you making this up from?
Yeah, why?
How come? He clearly deserved to be the MVP over Embiid last year. And then, by the way, this year before Embiid got hurt, Embiid was going to be the MVP this year.
And deservingly so. He's awesome.
Yes. But
absolutely incredible.
These rules that people make up on their own, it's nonsense. It's silly. And that's why I tell myself every single year, I got to stop betting NBA awards.
Yeah, it does get frustrating because, when you really break it down, like there's so many cases. Like the one that always sticks with me is the year Marcus Smart won Defensive Player of the Year. Oh, yeah. Marcus Smart, and that was our year that we were really in on Jaren Jackson Jr. and a whole bunch of those big prices. And the reason, and by the way, I mean, that year too, it's not even that Jaren Jackson Jr. didn't win it. It's that Robert Williams should have won it that year. Robert Williams was awesome. He was the reason why the Celtics made that run post-December because of what they did with him defensively, but because he got hurt before the last 2 weeks of the season, all the voters went, well, we got to give it to a Celtic. Let's give it to Marcus Smart.
Crazy.
It was insane to me to watch that transpire. So I'm with you. Like, I found myself getting frustrated with the fact that, like, the thinking or the logic behind some of the way that these voters vote, it does drive me absolutely insane. And yet every year I'm like, I'm in.
Does this drive you insane as the NFL draft is a week from tomorrow now? Another team, evidently, according to the GM, is going to be in the mix for a quarterback. Atlanta Falcons GM Terry Fontenot. He told the media, quote, "We're definitely going to add a quarterback. We're not going into the season with two arms."
Wow.
End of quote. There was a story written. It's on AtlantaFalcons.com. And they have a full breakdown of day-by-day targets that the Falcons could potentially grab. They include J.J. McCarthy on day one. So with the 8th pick overall, if McCarthy's on the board, sliding down now, if you will, a little bit, according to Terry Fontenot and AtlantaFalcons.com, that could be in play. Are you serious with this?
Now, I'll say this. I don't think that that's going to happen. Having said that, if it were to happen at 8, J.J. McCarthy at least makes more sense because he just turned 21. So, like, I was in this conversation yesterday on social media.
Does it make sense for the Falcons?
No, it doesn't that much. But I'm just saying, like, so it's like somebody brought it up to me yesterday because we were talking about how, like, hey, Penix or like Bo Nix could be in the mix, and it's like, well, no, those guys are 24. They're going to be like 26 by the time they see the field. At least with J.J. McCarthy, it's more like what the Packers did those first few years, right? Like Aaron Rodgers was 21 when he got drafted. Jordan Love was 21 when he got drafted. They see the field for the first time when they're 24. I guess that makes some sense. But, like, yeah, there's 7 rounds, man. Like, of course they could probably add a quarterback. I don't think they're going to do it in the first round, though.
No, I mean, this is something where it could be much later.
Yeah.
Day 3 pick, fine. We get that.
Go get Spencer Rattler. Try it out.
They also have, well, first of all, Rattler's going to be, what, top 3 or first 3 rounds probably?
I don't think so.
So they also, like, day 2, they said Michael Penix could be a target. They have the 43rd pick overall in the draft.
Sure.
Is Penix going to be there at number 43?
I mean, I think there's a chance. I think there's more of a shot that maybe somebody trades up. I mean, look, like in New England at number 34, for example, I think is a pretty good, interesting, right? New England at number 3, you add talent, whatever it's going to be, Joe Alt, Marvin Harrison Jr., you trade back, get assets, whatever. If you're sitting there at 34 and both Bo Nix and Michael Penix are available, why not? Why not try and give it a shot with one of those two guys?
That's way more logical than early on in the first round.
Of course it is.
And
100%.
I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah, they have day 3 target Spencer Rattler. They're picking 109th, and they have some picks a little bit beyond that. I think Rattler's going to be gone by pick 109.
I think so. I'm kind of, for where he's slated, I'm actually very excited to see what Spencer Rattler could be. Like, I think he actually can be very good.
If he goes to the right spot.
Yes. He had me playing offensive line in front of him at South Carolina.
Oh, he was running for his life.
He was getting abused.
The guy was an uber prospect coming out.
He was the favorite. His first year, he was the favorite to be the first overall pick.
Yep.
His first year out of college. Humans and I were laughing at it because we're like, there's no shot that's going to happen. He was the favorite that year.
And I think back-to-back years, he was one of the shortest shots on the board to win the Heisman Trophy.
Yep.
So we'll continue as NFL Draft Network's Daniel Jeremiah called him his favorite player in the class. Then why is his draft position this low? It's Follow the Money on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Don't miss out on any of the playoff action in the NBA at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. For the play-in tournament through the finals, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered. The same-game parlays, live betting odds, boosts, and so much more. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use code VSIN. New customers bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's code VSIN. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
I can't wait. 45 minutes from right now, we're going to talk about what the Vikings are going to do in the draft with Paul Charchian, Fantasy Football Hall of Famer, friend of the show, KFan Radio in Minneapolis. I sent him a text yesterday. I asked him the question, do I need to bet the Vikings to draft J.J. McCarthy with their first pick before you come on the show? He sent me what felt like a very emphatic one-word answer.
Yes.
You'll find out what that answer was coming up in
not
about
gonna tell
45
us.
minutes.
Okay, all right.
So He has very strong opinions on that and other draft props as well. Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network, also very strong opinions. He's one of the most reliable and one of the most trusted, I guess, draft pundits, if you will, in the entire world. And there was a video making the rounds yesterday where he said that Rome Odunze is his favorite player in the entire class. Wide receiver, Washington. He's a Las Vegas product. He played at Bishop Gorman. You went to Bishop Gorman.
As I always say, Rome Odunze, the second most famous alum coming out of Bishop Gorman High School. The first is me, then it's Rome Odunze, then DeMarco Murray. I think it's a good order.
Whatever happened to Tate Martell?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, Tate Martell. He's pretty far down the list.
The football factory, that is. Did you played, right? A little bit?
I did play a
Offensive
little
line?
bit, yes. DeMarco Murray helped me out one year. My freshman camp, when my big butt was cramping, because I was like, oh my God, this is hard. Handed me a water bottle. It was great.
Is that right?
Yep. It's my claim to fame.
Did you play much?
Not a lot, no. I was also a ne'er-do-well, so I was like a, what's the word I'm looking for? Eligibility was a question.
Was a problem?
Not so much skill.
So he says Odunze, favorite player in the class. There are 2 receivers slated to go ahead of him. Rome Odunze's draft position here at Circa anyway is 8.5. Mm-hmm. And doesn't feel like he's going to go under 8.5. Now, does he go, if there are no trades, that he's the most commonly mocked player to go to the Bears at number 9. Mm-hmm. Could they possibly not go number 9 there if he's on the board and they elect to go a different path?
I mean, he could, because I think the reality, there's a strong chance that you get a run of you could go 3 straight wide receivers at one point.
Well, there is a path where it could go quarterback, wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver.
Yeah, Arizona, LA, and then New York, and then depending on where he falls in.
I'm not buying into that, but people have said that could happen.
Right, but I mean, you at the very least, from Arizona through the New York Giants, you at least have teams that, whether it's 1 or 2, wide receiver is up there on positional needs. So it's a chance that it could happen. Odunze could be the steal of the draft, and I also think too, wide receiver seems to be somewhat like a personal taste a lot of the times. Like Marvin Harrison Jr. is the top wide receiver prospect. But once he goes off the board, depending on how you see a guy fitting into your system, Odunze could be the second wide receiver coming off the board.
Could be. I mean, there was a year, I think it was the pandemic year.
I mean, maybe the Henry Ruggs year too?
No, it was a 2021 year, I believe, right? Was that the Ruggs year?
Yeah.
Where it was Ruggs, CeeDee Lamb, and Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah.
And then I did not think Ruggs was going to go. In fact, Paulie had him, actually. Paulie had Henry Ruggs to go as the first wide receiver at a nice price. I'm like, Ruggs, he's fast, but that's it. I mean, a very nice wide receiver to Alabama. I'm looking at CeeDee Lamb and Jeudy thinking to myself, they're clearly going to go ahead of the guy. Nope, Raiders on the board. Ruggs first receiver taken. And that shocked a lot of people. So I don't think it's not going to be a stunner to me if Odunze would go ahead of Neighbors.
Yeah, that was 2020. And Ruggs, Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Rager, Justin Jefferson.
He went ahead of all of them.
Brandon Ayuk went 25.
Remember the reaction? They had the cam in the front office for the Vikings and Rick Spielman when the Eagles were right in front of them and they took Rager and Jefferson was on the board. They laughed.
Yep.
There's audio of that out. Their reaction was laughter.
That's a good draft reaction. And then remember, I think it was Peter King who had the piece. We don't have video of it, but it was the year that Chicago moved up to get Mitchell Trubisky.
Oh,
and
my
they had the
Lord.
quote from John Lynch was, "It can't be Trubisky, can it?" They didn't think they were going to get. I think it was Solomon Thomas, right? They ended up drafting.
Yeah.
They were like, they didn't think they were going to get him.
So that was actually one of my personal career highlights because that was the first year VSiN was ever on the air. It was the first draft we ever did.
That's right.
And Brent Musburger
I was a snot-nosed producer.
Was hosting the show. And for some reason, they had me sitting in with Brent, and I can't remember who else was on it.
I think
maybe
Paulie. Was Paulie up there?
Jimmy Vaccaro. Paulie was on later on in the show.
Okay, yeah.
They split us up a little bit. Maybe it was Jimmy Vaccaro or somebody like that. Anyway, when that happened, we were all completely floored.
Yep.
Could not believe, okay, they're trading up now. What is this going to be? Who's this going to be for? And when they announced Trubisky, we're like, that can't be right. Is this some sort of a joke?
Yeah.
We were blown away.
That was it. What a different time, too. Myles Garrett and Solomon Thomas picks 1 and 3.
A little bit of a difference here between those two.
Yep. Now it's going to be 5 straight quarterbacks in the first 5 picks.
There is more steam now that the price came down on Penix to go in the first round. That keeps
really?
creeping down there a little bit.
Not
so
worried.
Depends on how you look at it. Will Michael Penix be it's worded differently, different places. It's either going to be, will Michael Penix be a first-round pick, or his draft position prop is 32.5. And if you go under, the juice has changed. It's come down a little bit on the under.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think we have a pretty strong and solid sample size that tells us that draft odds and the moves are not entirely predictive, right? Will Levis at one point was favored to go. Did he get favored for first? I think he got favored.
He was
to go
very
first.
close last
year. Very close.
The week of, yep.
Anthony Richardson was favored at one point to go before C.J. Stroud. I think we see this all the time. And this is just in recent history. We can go back and talk about a lot of these guys. So I think you get a lot of people that maybe take positions, come back the other way, whatever it is in terms of how you're handling this. But I think eventually we'll get to the point where I feel pretty confident that – here's the thing. You know what I do feel confident about that the odds are getting right? As we talked about yesterday. For the first 2 months of this process – the narrative was that Bo Nix was solidly ahead of Penix. And that seems to now have shifted, which is, I think, a very strong and very correct move.
Put it this way. I wish that specific prop would have been available in Las Vegas a month and a half ago. The matchup prop, right?
Yep.
Who's going to go first, Penix or Nix? And now Penix has turned out to be a pretty nice favorite in that group, in that matchup, and I think that's deservedly so.
Remember last year, this was earlier in the process, but remember after the Combine, Anthony Richardson was a favorite over C.J. Stroud.
That's right.
After the Combine. He had flipped to that. That was one of the better live events, if you will, where I was on the air on a Saturday. We're watching the Combine, and I just had the odds up. And you're just after he's destroying Combine record after Combine record, and the odds just continued to shift on Anthony Richardson.
I'll give you another one from last year. This was week of the draft. Jalen Carter was a massive favorite to go under his prop, which I believe was 6.5. Mm-hmm. And the thought was he was going to go to Seattle, which they were picking 5th. But then they went Devin Witherspoon. And then he eventually went over and was taken, 9th overall, I believe? Mm-hmm. But he was a huge price to go over. It was either 5.5 or 6.5 last year, and that cashed. That got there. And everybody just kept betting him, thinking that the Seahawks were pretty much a lock to take him in that spot. Yep. Did not happen.
Now, the day of draft moves are, I think, predictive, as we learned last year.
Well, with Stroud number 2?
Yeah. An hour before, and you just saw those odds, okay, so this is going to happen. It's similar to Paolo Banchero, right? The day of the draft, with those odds moving. So I think when you get there, you can buy into obviously what the odds are or where the odds are going. But at this point right now, still, even a week, what are we at now? 8 days out. Still, I don't think there's enough information where you're actually buying into where these things are moving yet.
I would agree. I'll give you another wild card too. The Cowboys.
Sure.
With Jerry Jones. Have you looked at their running back room?
Oh, that's a good point, yeah.
It's not very strong.
You think first round?
If you want to get nuts.
24th overall, or do you trade back? Are they smart enough to trade back to 31, 32?
This is the same guy who wanted to take Johnny Manziel.
Yep.
It's the same guy who has taken... They did not need CeeDee Lamb a couple years ago. But when that dude fell to them, they're like, we already have really good receivers and a great offense. We got to add him. They needed other pieces that year that they took CeeDee Lamb. They were struggling big time on defense.
8-1 on over a half for running backs in the first round at DraftKings.
Specifically, Cowboys to take a running back.
Ooh, that's
got to be a huge price. I'm just saying, Jerry Jones, I don't think it's going to happen, but that dude is a total wild card, man.
30-1.
Nothing surprises me with him.
Yeah, position of first player drafted in the NFL draft for the Cowboys, 30-1.
I will say that Charge on the same, again, he's coming up in about 40 minutes. Paul Charchian, same team, he has 2 bets. One of them is a 35 or 40-1 shot for their first overall pick, not the Cowboys.
Oh, okay.
Another team.
Really?
Yeah.
That'd be interesting. Because I think with the draft, which of the corners did you hit? You had a pretty long shot on one of the corners.
I had Stingley a couple years ago. Yeah, 100-1 to go third.
By the time we got there, though, he was
the favorite.
Yeah, he was the favorite. So, generally, you get to the point where it corrects itself, but usually you don't get those unless you jump on them pretty early, right? And the market starts to shift there. So, I'd be pretty interested to hear what he has to say.
I think the one that would shock people this year, that nobody would see coming, would be Joe Alt going 3rd overall.
Oh, to the Patriots would be great.
It's 100-1. It's not going to happen. I don't think.
You never know.
But
Patriots off the board. Come on, let's go.
Up next, Jeff Seeley's going to join the program. We'll handicap the Heritage this week. How should we attack the betting board with Scotty Scheffler around 4-1?